Hello everyone, this is Gene again. I'm back with another video. I apologize for the lack of lighting. It's nighttime here and I don't get, obviously there's no natural light, right? It's only darkness and artificial light, and the light in the room isn't exactly the brightest. So I get this, shadowed look. The most annoying thing about it, honestly, is that when I have the phone in selfie mode, it looks like 2 shades lighter. Again, not great, but at least my face doesn't look like it's constantly in shadow. And then once I actually start recording, then it gets shades darker and I look like I'm sitting in a shadow with some of the light up in the upper corner there. But I guess, such as the joys of lo-fi live action recording. But anyway, first of all, welcome back to the channel. Whether this is the first video you've watched or the 100th video you've watched, I'm always thankful for your views and for your comments and interaction. I sincerely like to, discuss these things and have discussion and debate. So long as we can all be friendly and respectful, I've got no problem with it. So thank you again so much for taking time out of your busy day or night to hear me ramble about something. So tonight's video, I hope, is short. I know I usually say that and then I go on for like a half hour, but I really am going to try to keep this short because this is just a musing I've had, and I want to get you lovely viewers, your opinion on it. So I just saw the fourth snake video on Sindel and how Netherrealm ruined her. For those who may not be familiar with the channel, the fourth snake is a channel where he basically focuses on the lore of various video games. One of the big ones, of course, is Mortal Kombat. He's done several videos. He has a series called Wasted Potential, right? Playing on the word potential, talking about the plot and the storyline and, what he feels went wrong and how he would fix it, right? I like his channel a lot. I think he makes a lot of good good points, right? He really has a good understanding, I think, of story and of narrative and of the characters that he's talking about. So I really recommend his channel. So I just saw his latest video on Sindel, and of course this god-awful change that has not been well received by the Mortal Kombat faithful. And in this video that he did, he reveals an interesting tidbit that I was not aware of when I made my video, but in the end does not really surprise me, which is that the two people who were in charge of writing Sindel's revamped lore are men. The two people who wrote Sindel's revamped backstory are two guys. Now, here's why I find this interesting. Because, again, two men now wrote a woman's backstory, right? And, of course, earlier, when there was the hoopla earlier this year over the more modest female costumes, right, that was explained and defended by longtime art director for Netherrealm Studios, Steve Baran. So, again, a guy making decisions about what women should look like. Now, I want to be clear. I understand that this is a creative medium, and I'm not, in no way am I trying to say that men should not write from a woman's perspective or that men can't have opinions about women and how they think, feel, look, or anything else, right? I believe in an open creative space. If you are a man and you want to make a female character, go ahead. You're a woman, you want to make a male character, go ahead. I just highlight this because of the fact that I just find it interesting that in this particular case, it's these men making these changes, right? And their defense usually is that it's supposed to be somehow beneficial or more respectful toward the female audience, right? That was the line that Steve Baran went with when he tried to justify and defend the costume changes for the majority of the females in Mortal Kombat 11, right? He said, most infamously, that women don't fight in bikinis. Apparently, he overlooked the fact that most women who are professional fighters, such as MMA fighters, boxers, even pro wrestling, if you consider that professional fighting in some fashion, right, that they tend to wear very skimpy, revealing outfits that are little more than bra tops, right, than sports bra tops and boy shorts, which are covering essentially the exact same areas that a bikini would, and that offer no more protection from being hit than a bikini would. It's not like they go in there wearing chainmail or some sort of light armor, right? So I just find that I found it then, I find it now very interesting. And then, of course, to learn that it was two men who decided to take a woman who was defined by her femininity, right? The good queen, the good wife, the good mother, and they turned her into a lusty, evil queen stereotype. Again, I just find that interesting, especially since, as was confirmed by Stephanie during the combat cast, that this was done to give her agency, right? It was done for two reasons, according to Stephanie. One was to make her looks and her lore mesh up, and I pointed out in my other video that there was no need for such a change. There are, tropes, and there are story tropes, talking about the duality of people and how just because someone someone looks evil doesn't mean they are evil. But what I really want to focus on is, again, the justification that came from Stephanie. And Stephanie, to my knowledge, is a senior QA analyst at Netherrealm Studios, right? Again, that this change was made to give her agency, right? To give a female character agency. And think about how they never use these justifications about respectability or agency when they change a male's backstory. Not that they often change a male character's backstory, right? But out of all the male backstories that I can think of that have been altered over the course of Mortal Kombat, I can't think of one instance where they relied on respectability politics to justify the change, right? Take, for example, Jax, right? They didn't rely on respectability politics to justify Jax's ending, even though everybody I shouldn't say everybody, because that would be that wouldn't be true. But the majority of fans spoke out against that, saying how out of character it was for a guy like Jax to suddenly just be defined solely by his race. They didn't play respectability politics there. At least none that I can think of. No one from the company came out and said, well, we're trying to show respect to the African Americans, right, in North America and all this other stuff. They didn't do that. They made a dumb decision and a very dumb change that wasn't necessary, but they didn't try to justify it by playing respectability politics, right? When they make alterations to male characters' designs, they don't make the change and justify it by saying, oh, men don't fight in this or fight in that. They just make the change. So I just find it interesting that when they want to make changes to women, they have to justify it, right? Especially when their fan base tells them, we don't want this change. When the fan base says, I didn't, or rather collectively says, we didn't ask for this, please give us what we've always known and liked. And they justify these changes by somehow saying that it's more respectful to women, which to me ultimately means that it's somehow better for us. Or it's done with women in mind. Yet, when they make these changes, I cannot recall one time where they got a woman to comment on these changes. I cannot recall one time when a woman from Netherrealm Studios was interviewed or asked any questions be it on video, be it on Twitter or anything else, about what she thinks about these changes. I can't recall, if it's out there, let me know, but I cannot recall an interview, and many an interview have been done about this game, but I can't think of one interview, one combat cast, or anything else where they had a woman, right? A woman come on to the interview or the combat cast or whatever it is and give her opinion about whether or not she likes the changes to the lore or the changes to the costume or anything else. And I don't think that's going to change. I don't think they're actually going to let the women at the company speak. Because in my opinion, I don't think that they really want to hear what the women at the company have to say. They want to speak for women, but they don't want women to speak for themselves. Because, see, if women speak for themselves, then they might do what I have done, what Losty Girl has done, what Nerdette's Newsstand has done, what Liana K has done, and what many, many other channels that women who are fans of the franchise have done, which is call them out on their hypocrisy and remind them that all these changes that they've made, from making the characters less, at least some of the characters, right? But making characters like Jade, Katana, Scarlet, and others, right? Shiva. I've ranted all the live long day about that, right? Making them more modest when they didn't need to be, and there was no, at least in my opinion, there was no real reasonable justification for it. It's like, why in the world does the monster girl, who comes from a race of warriors who wear barely any clothing, suddenly need clothes? Especially when the visual was always inspired by bodybuilders. Goro wears little more than a fondushi. Why can't Shiva do the female equivalent, right? They can never answer that question, because they probably don't even ask that question when they make these changes. They just think that somehow it will get them claps and love hearts and approvals and likes on Twitter. And then when they're called out on it, instead of actually addressing criticism, or actually, I don't know, for once in life, letting a woman speak at the company and give her opinion, they just have a guy come out and say, well, we're being more respectful toward women. This is Mortal Kombat. This is a video game where your lead character, where your hero of the story, can turn into a flippin' dragon and bite somebody in half. I'm not looking for respectability politics out of a series like this. And the crazy thing was, at least in my opinion, their depiction of a good chunk of their female cast was, in my opinion, more respectful back then than it was now, because it truly showed these women as empowered. Again, Shiva didn't have to wear a freaking armor because she was like 7 feet tall, like the heaviest character, or one of the heaviest characters in the game. She has 4 arms. She's freaking fearsome. She can rip you apart. She doesn't need armor. You need to run away from her, but she doesn't need armor, right? Or again, Sindel, as I said in my video, right? In my opinion, her storyline of having been a victim and then taking her life back, taking her world back, when she finally gets a second chance at life, right? And finally gets her agency back, right? She makes up for the mistakes that she made by, sorry for the noise, by overtly and openly opposing her former oppressor. Like, how much more agency do you need? Because, see, back then, when they had John Tobias, they were actually willing to tell stories with these characters. They were actually willing to be creative with them. They didn't worry about respectability politics. In fact, the Midway, right, back then, they were Midway. They would have given a middle finger to such a thing, right? And they told, in my opinion, a better story that way. Was it a perfect story? No. Did it have its issues? Yes. Did it not make sense in spots? Yes. It was the 1990s. It was a different time. But the stories they told with the women of a daughter rebelling against her father and working to reclaim her world, of Jade being conflicted, right? Does she side with her best friend? Does she side with her emperor? She chooses her best friend. I have no doubt that if Mortal Kombat, I'll say Ultimate 3, because that's when she really became a character. She was like a hidden character in 2, she wasn't in 3, so I'll say Ultimate 3 trilogy, those games. That was when she was really, in my opinion, properly introduced and was given an actual storyline, right? And an actual conflict, again, of does she obey the Emperor? Does she side with her best friend? Right? I firmly believe that they would have her side with the Emperor. Now, why would she do it? Why would she side with a man? Well, because it's agency, right? She's making a choice. So she chooses, just like Sindel, she chooses to betray her best friend. This is again, I can't prove it, but this is the impression that I get. Right? They were actually willing to tell stories with their female characters back then. Maybe not every story stuck, like Li Mei. She was not a popular character. Nitara wasn't all that popular. Right? Ashura, I don't think I've seen her since what was it? Deadly Alliance or Deception. Right? Of course, not every character sticks, right? A lot of the characters from the 3D era, from the last 3 games, haven't really come back. But for the characters that did, right? For the women that did, Sonya, Kitana, Melina, right? Interesting that one of the most sexualized women in the series is still dead, right? Sindel's back. Sindel died, but they brought her back. Yet they haven't brought They have not brought Melina back. I wonder why. I get the impression that it's because she's a bit too hot. She's a bit too scandalous for modern day Netherrealm, who instead of actually looking to tell a story with Melina, maybe a story of tragedy, of always being viewed as a monster, as being seen as little more than a defective clone of the rightful princess, right? They've actually tried to tell a story with that type of, tragic character. Instead, they just, go, oh, she's the oversexed Kitana. Remember that one time, like 15 years ago, that we had her in Playboy and we had her do a pose where she's topless and the only thing hiding her nipples are her daggers? Yeah, we have to atone for that now. So let's leave her out the game, despite the fact that she's one of the most popular female characters in the entire series, going back to MK2 in 19-4. But let's leave her out because she's too hot. Right? They can't actually deal with a character who actually is attractive, is very sexual, and yet actually has a story and has a narrative that you could tell. I guess it's just too hard for their itty bitty woke brains to actually tell a story with female characters again. So instead of actually telling stories with female characters, they just decide to just change their costumes and claim that it's for the benefit of female players, even though can't think of a female player who requested these changes. Or they go and take a very complex, beloved female character from the midpoint in the midpoint in the series back in 1995, right? Who's had several entries, who had a story of redemption and agency, right? Of at first doing the wrong thing and then doing the right thing. Instead, they scrap all that, literally tell us in Sindel's ending that it's all a lie. Everything that we've known is a lie. Scrap all that, right? 20 years of work to make her a generic evil queen. As I said, the best thing to come out of that change was the voice acting. But outside of that, it's just been a... yeah. So anyway, that's the video. I'm of the opinion that the more a company like Netherrealm Studios plays respectability politics and claims it's for the women's, that the less they actually respect women. Now, do I think that they're consciously aware of this? Probably not. I don't think they're consciously aware of this, but I also think that they have so much cotton in their damn ears that they're not willing to hear what women who like this series and who have a long history with this series are saying. I think whenever they hear criticism come out of a woman's mouth, they just think it's some sort of aberration. Because why would a woman not like this? Maybe because women are people and we don't have a hive mind and we don't always agree on the same thing. Maybe, just maybe, we're people. I don't know. You tell me. That's my opinion. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And I will see you in the next video. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Have a nice night. Have a nice day. Be happy, healthy, and safe. And I'll see you around. Bye.